Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down the blueprint of formal proposals. We're going to learn exactly how to pitch an idea, build a really compelling case, and, most importantly, secure that approval and funding. Whether you're an entrepreneur chasing a massive contract or an employee trying to drive change from the inside, mastering this document is honestly an absolute superpower.
So, picture this. You want to bring in some brand new, cutting edge tech at your job to just drastically increase productivity. You've done the research, you know for a fact it works. But how do you actually get upper management to approve the idea and, release the funds to pay for it? You can't just casually mention it at the water cooler and expect a blank check. You need a structured, persuasive pitch. Okay, let's dive into this. A proposal is so much more than just a stack of paperwork. It acts as the literal bridge between your brilliant idea and the actual approval to execute it. Basically, it's a persuasive document that asks your audience to approve, fund, or grant permission to do a very specific project. Put simply, it's the ultimate tool you use to instill absolute confidence in your ability to get the job done. Here's our blueprint for this explainer. First, identifying your proposal type. Then we'll hit the three parts of the document: the front matter, the main body, and the back matter. And finally, we'll wrap with a bulletproof pre-writing strategy. All right, section 1, identifying your proposal type, setting the rules of engagement. Right, before you even start building your document, you've got to know your parameters. Let's look at where your pitch is coming from and where it's going. First, is it an internal or external proposal? An internal proposal goes to someone inside your own organization, which is great because you might be able to skip a lengthy section on your personal qualifications since, well, they already know you. An external proposal, however, goes to an independent organization, so you absolutely have to prove who you are. Next, is it solicited or unsolicited? A solicited proposal is written in response to an RFP, a formal request for proposals. They are literally asking you to bid on a project. But an unsolicited proposal, that's when you're pitching an idea totally out of the blue. For an unsolicited pitch, you actually have to convince the recipient that a problem even exists before you can make your main argument. Once you know your audience, you've got to pick your format. You essentially have two options here. You can use a separate cover letter attached to the front of your proposal, which is perfect for those formal external pitches, or you can use a consolidated memo format, where the entire proposal is just baked right into a standard business memo structure. That consolidated approach, it's super common for internal pitches to your boss or the management team. Moving right along to section 2, front matter, the introduction. The front matter is just everything that comes before the main body of your text. Think of this section as the formal greeting, the visual packaging, and the navigational guide for your document. We're talking your cover letter, your professional packaging, meaning a title page with the recipient and date, an abstract, a table of contents, and if you're really heavy on the charts, a table of figures. This whole section is all about making a pristine, highly professional first impression. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the distinct difference between an abstract and an executive summary. They kind of sound similar, but they serve entirely different purposes. An abstract is just a brief, single-paragraph capsule summary meant to quickly clue the reader into the document's general vibe and purpose. An executive summary, on the other hand, is way more detailed. It contains all your critical points and is specifically designed for a busy decision-maker to read and decide if the rest of your proposal is actually worth their time. I mean, for a massive government project, an executive summary could literally be the size of a small book. Let's hit section 3, main body, the core argument. Okay, this is it. This is the absolute heart of your proposal, where your persuasive argument is actually constructed, detailed, and won. The main body holds all the essential components of your pitch. You start with an introduction and background, flow right into the benefits and feasibility of your idea, describe the exact deliverable, and then explain the method or procedure you'll use. Finally, you lay out the schedule and costs, list your qualifications, and wrap it all up with a strong conclusion. You're detailing the problem, proving your solution, and showing exactly why you're the best person to pull it off. Let's look a little closer at a few of these crucial elements. The background information section is where you establish why the project is necessary in the first place. Consider this real-world example from our source material. Managers of a chain of daycare centers need to meet strict state licensing requirements by ensuring every single employee knows CPR. This is a clear, undeniable problem, right? Because the absolute last thing a daycare needs is to fail a safety inspection. If you're submitting an unsolicited proposal to those managers, laying out this background proves that you deeply understand the precise regulatory problem they're facing long before you ever offer up your specific CPR training solution. And this brilliantly illustrates the need for the method, procedure, and theory section. This quote highlights a landowner in East Texas who wants to harvest pine timber, but strictly without destroying the local ecosystem. If you're the one proposing to do this logging, you can't just say, "Don't worry, I'll be careful." No way. You need a dedicated section explaining the exact technical procedures and methods you'll use to guarantee ecological safety. That is what builds immense confidence that you actually know what you're talking about. Next up is the schedule and cost section. Take a look at this mock table based on that timber logging example. A really fantastic piece of advice from the source is to separate your timeline and budget into two distinct phases if you're doing a research proposal. Notice how phase 1 is just researching and delivering a feasibility report for $1,500. Then phase 2 is the actual major project, the eco-friendly logging itself, coming in at $45,000. By splitting them up like this, you show the client exactly what they're paying for at each step, ensuring they know they can afford the final project before paying you to research it. It's a real game changer. Section 4. Back matter, supporting details. So we've built the core argument, now for the supporting structural beams. The back matter houses all the extra details that are super important, but would honestly just clutter up and distract from your main argument. If you have massive tables of raw data, hundreds of lines of sample code, or giant fold-out maps, check them in an appendix. If you're using highly technical language, you definitely need a glossary. For a massive proposal, you might even need an index. And of course, you must always include a references section to properly cite your information sources, usually using APA style for these kinds of technical documents. And finally, Section 5, your pre-writing strategy. So the crucial point is that now that we understand the complete structure of a proposal, we need a tactical checklist. These are the 5 steps you absolutely must complete before you even touch a keyboard. First, audience, who exactly are you writing to, and what's their technical background? Second, situation. What is the exact problem and location you're dealing with? Third, deliverable type. Are you handing them a research report, a physical object, or a service? Fourth, information sources. Where are you getting your facts? List out your books, your interviews. And fifth, graphics. Plan out what tables and charts you'll need to make your data really pop. Following this checklist ensures your proposal is perfectly tailored to your audience right from the very first sentence. And that brings us to the end of our blueprint. You now have the structural knowledge to persuade, to pitch, and to win. So I leave you with this final thought. Look around your workplace, your community, or your industry. What problem are you going to solve with your very first formal proposal? The tools are in your hands now. Go out there and start building your ideas into reality. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.